In the intricate tapestry of democracy, the relationship between voters and politicians is paramount.
At the core of our political system lies a pivotal question.
To what extent are voters responsible for the actions of the politicians they elect?
In this video, we will explore the factors involved in this question, such as the complex layers of political influence, the lack of information communicated to the voters, and the disproportionality of our voting system, to assess the true extent of voter responsibility.
And, through the analysis of historical and contemporary precedent, we aim to shed light on the voter-politician relationship and prove that political power lies primarily with those in government and broader structures aligning with the interests of capital.
Certainly the most obvious argument that voters aren't always responsible for the actions of politicians they elect is that politicians don't always act on the platform for which they were elected. Politicians lie, and political assets shift.
One example of this would be our current Conservative government. Not only have we had 3 prime ministers and at least as many cabinets, we've also had a government that, having won its mandate on Brexit, then had to contend with COVID-19, something that could have been anticipated neither by voters nor the government.
Furthermore, this government has broken many notable manifesto pledges, and while it is arguable whether these represent lies or just changing political realities, the fact of the matter is that these decisions were simply not what voters voted for in 2019, and reflect a betrayal of the platform on which the mandate was won.
Additionally, as Engels wrote, universal suffrage is the gauge of the maturity of the working class. It cannot and never will be anything more in the present-day state.
In essence, who gets to vote and how is a political decision in and of itself.
An example of this is the first-past-the-post system in the UK and US, that led its voter choice to only 2 viable candidates.
Especially in the latter, where there are very few regulations on campaign financing and TV media bias. It can also be seen through examples such as the recent voter ID laws described by Jacob Rees-Mogg as an attempted gerrymandering by his own party.
Ultimately, what these examples, distinct from those of changing agendas, demonstrate is a much softer form of the belief popular among revolutionary leftists that if voting could change anything meaningful, they would make it illegal.
While they do not show this concept to be completely true, they certainly demonstrate that the system of choosing political leaders is one made first and foremost by those with political and economic capital, and therefore access to voting laws, media coverage, campaign financing, and more, with voters making the decision only second to this political landscape.
However, there is also an important case against the argument that responsibility lies with those in power and our system of democracy alone. Firstly, it is true that voters do have access to candidate manifestos and speeches, giving them at least somewhat of an insight into predicting the actions of politicians if elected.
However, this impact is limited, with politicians often changing their ideologies at the last minute.
Secondly, it could be argued that it is the public who vote for local politicians, who then vote for their party leader. So even if voters can't be blamed for the actions of the Prime Minister, they still hold a certain level of political influence via smaller elections.
However, the same arguments rebutting the responsibility of voters still apply, as systemic manipulation is present even at the local level, where councils are limited by the national government.
And only receive a small amount of money to run their constituencies, thus reducing voter participation and even resulting in some councils going bankrupt.
Overall, while it is undeniable that as individual agents with autonomy over our decision-making, we do bear some responsibility, this is severely limited by a variety of factors.
As we've shown, for lack of a magic crystal ball, voters can never be perfectly informed about their decisions, given the unpredictable political landscape, which is further muddied by the fact that politicians will do anything to win votes, even misrepresenting their own policies.
All of these, along with other factors such as many residents not being able to vote at all, and systemic misrepresentation, act as a significant dampener on the responsibility of individual voters,
and demonstrate that the responsibility for the actions of the elected politician is primarily collective, and requires collective action rather than individual insular decisions, which, while important, if unorganised, simply form the ripples of a much larger tide.